This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cavins.
Boy, if we could only share what happened before this podcast actually started to record, it might melt your brain. But we are here. You can see the both of us, hopefully, if you're watching. You can hear my voice. You will hear Greg momentarily, which I couldn't for about 45 minutes. But here we are. This episode, as always, is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off the NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. Of course, Greg, we are going to talk about the Patriots Eagles coming up on Sunday. We'll get through that game. We'll give you our pick, or at least one of us will give you our pick, a little bit of tease there. But first, let's start with the news of the past 24 hours, and that's Jack Jones. So Jack Jones, the charges were dropped. He gets 1 year probation and 48 hours of community service. Before we talk about the impact on the football field, Greg, just your thoughts overall with the decision by the DA to drop these charges and the fact that Jack Jones, he's a free man, doesn't have to worry about jail time. He's good to go.
Look, I'm not a legal expert or anything. That's why I sort of stayed away from this whole thing. It seems like, he had a fall guy that said that they produced somebody that said it was my guns. He didn't know what was going on, and it's hard to prove. It looked like that was going to be the defense. That was really like the only defense. And judging off of the prosecutor's comments about it, that's what it seemed. That somebody said he didn't know. I packed the bag. It was my fault. Blah, blah, blah. So, it is what it is. If he was Joe Schmo public, do I think this happens? Probably not. But it sort of is what it is. I still think, separate from the legal issue, if I were the Patriots, I would still send Jack Jones a message. I would make him inactive for week 1, at least some sort of punishment, because this was an extreme error in judgment off of the suspension that he had at the end of his rookie season to do this. I think they need to send the kid a message, and I doubt that will happen. It's not my football team; it's their football team. But on the field, I expect him. I expect him to be out there. I don't think things will change. It'll be interesting to see where he is in the pecking order, whether he's 2 or 3, or what the deal is behind Gonzalez and John Jones. How Marcus Jones factors into that. But for now, Jack Jones is fully ready to go for the Patriots.
I'm so glad you started with, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know much about the legal world, because I have heard some people who are trying to be district attorneys out there the last day or so. I'm not going to touch that. All I'll say is, I was kind of surprised by other people being so surprised that he got a slap on the wrist. He's a celebrity. This happens all the time. Guys who have some kind of influence, women who have some kind of influence, whether it's, they're movie stars or they're pro athletes or they know some, but this is what happens. When, as Greg said, if you're Joe Schmo, if you're Frankie in Foxboro, you're probably going to have to go through something more than Jack Jones did. But this is how it works. And this is how it works across the league, and not only in the NFL and the NBA, just across everywhere. You have guys that get slapped on the wrist and women that get slapped on the wrist for things that they in other walks of life wouldn't. So did Jack Jones get off light? Yes. Just like pretty much every other professional athlete and celebrity, unless you murdered somebody in cold blood, this is what happens. And to me, the biggest question, Greg, is not, how did he get off, and the DA and all that stuff. I know, because again, that's just what happens in the real world. But the biggest question to me is kind of what you hit on late there, which is, what will the Patriots do? Will they do anything? And most of all, for Jack Jones, will he learn from this? Because I don't know how you feel, Greg, but he didn't seem like he had much contrition at all when people were asking him about it. His activity on the field, some of the things that he did post this incident, for somebody you thought that might be acting like, hey, man, I'm right on the rails. I am doing everything I can to be the best teammate and person that I can be. He didn't always do that. So I'm just wondering, will this guy learn? He didn't learn, obviously, from the college days, mistakes and stuff that he did. Will this finally be the epiphany for him?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we haven't seen any change in his demeanor. Remember, he walked off the field or got kicked out of practice at one point at the Packers joint practices. He was in the middle of everything. He had the really bad pass interference penalty in the last game. It's still out there that I mean, it's still true that he played a crap ton in the final preseason game. Why was that? That sort of leads me to believe that maybe the Patriots do decide to sit him down for one game. I have a hard time seeing that because I think Bill's just about winning games, and look, he's a football coach. And a lot of these guys aren't choir boys. I understand all that stuff. I just think, like you said, there's no question that Jack Jones is extremely talented. There's never been any question about that. Going back to high school and college and his various stops and stuff like that. But at some point, he's got to get the message. He's got to be a professional, and you don't have to be a choir boy, but you just have to be smart about it. And if he's just able to walk scot-free from this, where he is right now, is he going to learn, or is he only going to be more emboldened to be like, I can do whatever I want? So I don't know. It's a dangerous slope for the Patriots. He's a talented player. They need him. He's one of the keys to this defense if they're going to be really good this season. And, you just got to hope the Patriots make sure that his head is screwed on straight.
And look, there's history with Jack Jones, but there's history with other players too. Quinnen Williams of the Jets. He was somebody who, got caught felony count of possession of a weapon, trying to board a flight at the airport. Same thing. This happened in October of 2020. So almost exactly 3 years ago, the Jets had to go through something like this with Quinnen Williams. And from what we know, Quinnen Williams hasn't really had many issues since then. I know he had something with the car, right? Wasn't he driving and had a weapon or something? But he's been able to keep himself on the football field is the point. And so there is a history of guys doing stuff across the league, but then they figure it out, or at least they figure it out enough to stay productive and be an impact player, and the team doesn't have a big issue with it. So we'll see if that's what Jack Jones does or not, and how the Patriots handle this. Now on the field, Greg, the football impact of this, is this a big win for the Patriots? Because one of the things, to me, I think it is, and I tweeted that out, that it's a huge win for them, because one of the things that I think that we didn't spend a ton of time on is depth at cornerback. And if you took Jack Jones away from that equation, all of a sudden now you're depending on some other cats that you might not feel as confident in. Not to say that Jack Jones was fantastic in the preseason. You just mentioned he was god awful in the last one. But the impact on the field, how big of a win is this for the team and for the secondary?
Well, I mean, it depends what you thought the alternative was. I mean, if you thought he was going to jail or something like that, then yeah, it's a big win. I mean, I really stayed away from that because, I've covered too many things in professional sports, too many legal situations where it's just like, like it took like Johnny Jolly of the Packers like forever to go to jail on serious drug charges. And so, I thought he was going to be playing at least this year. I wasn't one of these people who was like, oh, well, he's got to serve jail time. These people weasel out of things. So, I never thought that they were going to be without him for a long period of time. They could still be without him for a week or something if the NFL decides to step in. I doubt that the NFL will do that now that the charges have been dropped. But, you never know with the NFL. You really never know. And guns seem to be becoming a problem in this league again. And you're just waiting for the right case where Goodell sort of steps in and makes an example of somebody. Could be Jack Jones, could be the next guy. I don't know. But, look, Jack Jones is important to this team. They don't have much depth at cornerback at all. I mean, when you're talking about Sean Wade and Amir Speed being the next cornerbacks up, like, good luck.
Yikes.
Those guys shouldn't be on a roster, really. But, maybe this maybe Jack Jones's future being solidified makes them let go of one of those guys, or we'll have to see.
Yeah, I don't think this is the case because of how he handled it. Like you and I talked about a few minutes ago, like the lack of contrition and all of that, and his swagger was there. Maybe you could say possibly, probably a stretch, but maybe his focus was impacted during camp, and maybe his focus was impacted by the stuff that was happening off the field at times. And maybe you didn't see the best of Jack Jones because of that. And now that it's hopefully behind him fully, he'll have that focus. But I think the jury is still out. Depth wise, I do think it's good for the Patriots. All right, let's jump into this season now. Again, we'll talk about the Eagles in a little bit, but Greg wants to talk about kind of the bigger picture outlook of this team as we're on the precipice of week 1, game 1, Sunday, 4/25, Tom Brady Day, yada, yada. We know the drill. And we want to start positive. Wet blanket Greg, wet blanket Bedard wants to start positive today with this team. So, Greg, let's go 1, 2, 3 here. We'll alternate, you and I. 3 things that give you confidence in this team. So if you're a Patriots fan right now and you're sitting there thinking about how this season is going to go, 3 things that make you confident in this team. Greg, what's one of your 3?
Sub-package rush with Matthew Judon, Josh Uche, Christian Barmore, and I will assume Keon White. I think that's going to be, on paper, that's a formidable group that presents matchup issues for an offensive line. Who do you double? A lot of people are going to get singled up. You're talking about, all 4 guys can defeat one-on-one blocking, which is really good. I mean, I'm a little bit worried heading into the season about Barmore. He didn't have much of a summer at all. Maybe he was pacing himself. Maybe they were, working his way through his knee or foot or whatever was bothering him last year. But, on paper, those 4 guys are very formidable sub-package rush, and I feel good about that.
Yeah, I'm going to copy you. One of my 3 was pass rush. Uche, Judon, Wise, White, Barmore, if he gets it going. I think they could do some things blitz-wise. They got, a lot of versatility on that, second level if they use Mapu there. And, I think you can do some funky stuff as well if you need to do some funky stuff. But I don't know if they'll need to. I'm pretty confident that they'll be able to get to the quarterback at a decent rate this year with the guys they have up front. So I'm with you on that one. All right, number two thing that you're confident in.
David Andrews. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of moving pieces with the offensive line, but I have the utmost confidence in David Andrews, not only with his level of play. I think he's chronically underrated as a center, as a player on this team, around the league as well. Cole Strange, he's got both guards coming back. There could be sort of a rotation as these guys get up to game speed in the first couple of weeks. But, David Andrews being there with Mac Jones, leading this offensive line group, it gives me a lot more confidence than, say, like they had some, rookie like Jake Andrews or somebody at center. Like, I think David Andrews will give the Patriots the best chance to be a good offensive line at some point this season.
I'm going to go with the Zeke Mondre 1-2 punch in the backfield. I feel pretty good about these guys. I think they'll run the ball effectively. I think Zeke will get you, 10 to 13, 14 touches, and Stevenson will handle the rest. I think they'll be better in short yardage. I think they'll be better in the red zone. They'll be better on the goal line. They'll be able to protect Mac, at least from their position. They can't do everybody's job up front, but I feel pretty good about this Zeke Stevenson 1-2 punch in the backfield. I think Patriots will be able to run the ball pretty well this year. Number 3 for you.
Yeah, that's a good call, and I agree with you on that. I wish I would have thought of it. But number 3 for me is Hunter Henry. I think that he's primed to have a good season. He has a great rapport with Mac Jones. I look at him as one of the sort of the ability to be a little bit of a difference maker as far as the offensive weapons on this team, especially in week 1. I think the middle of the field is something that they could target against the Eagles. So, I'm just looking for, things that I know that Mac Jones can find comfort in on offense, and Hunter Henry is one of those guys.
I'm going to go with something that would have been absolutely bananas last year to say, but the coaching staff. Pretty confident. If Belichick is going to be CEO Belichick, and focus on the things that you have brought up before, Greg. We had this conversation about bringing in Bill O'Brien months ago and the idea of how that opens up Bill Belichick to be Bill Belichick and to make sure some of those things that we've seen fall through the cracks, not fall through the cracks this year. So I think the coaching staff with Belichick, the CEO, Bill O'Brien running the offense, Mayo, Steve Belichick running the defense, and also something that I would not overlook is Joe Judge, who, look, I've criticized him. Greg's criticized him. We know what he doesn't do well at the NFL level as a coach, but what he has done a pretty good job of is special teams. And so I think with O'Brien, Belichick, and then little Belichick, Mayo, and Joe Judge, you have a hell of a lot better chance coaching-wise to win football games than you did a year ago. So I'll go with the coaching staff and the confidence in those gentlemen. All right, before we get to three things that worry you, because that's what we do here, right? We don't just sugarcoat stuff. We don't just kill things. We give you the pretty fair look at this team. Before we get to the three things that worry you, staying on the optimistic side, Greg, path to a playoff berth. If I asked you, how do the Patriots find their way into the playoffs? What does that look like for you, 2023 New England Patriots?
First and foremost, Nick, the offensive line has to come together quickly. Now, does it have to be week one against the Eagles? No. But, let's say we get in a situation where, Trent Brown seems to be in a good place. Let's just say that Cole Strange and Micah Wenu prove that in today's NFL, you don't need a lot of camp, even for an offensive line. That you don't need playing time in the preseason. I mean, the Eagles they do even less than the Patriots do. Their starters didn't play at all. They don't practice all that hard. Now, it works for them. I don't know why it hasn't worked for the Patriots, but, let's just say that, the guards are able to, no problem in week one. You have David Andrews and they figure out, right tackle. I do think Vidarian Lowe, out of the two tackles that they traded for, I do think that Vidarian Lowe has the potential to be a good player and sort of a plug and play offensive tackle. Now, I know nothing about his mental capabilities and how he's going to pick up the system and all that stuff. I have no idea about that. But physically, to me, he looks like a Patriots right tackle and has a chance to be a decent one. So if that offensive line solidifies early and they're able to hit the ground running, I still think, yes, it's a huge problem. Where they are is not ideal at all. And were they throwing crap against the wall to solidify the offensive line in late August? Yeah. But still, on paper, if it all comes together quickly, I think they have the best line in the division. And that gives them a huge leg up. The second thing with that, it coincides, is that the quicker the line is solidified, the quicker Mac Jones gets confidence and hangs in the pocket and just is able to stay with the play and get the ball down the field. If the offensive line is a complete crap show, especially for multiple games early on in the season, that speeds up the quarterback. He doesn't have confidence. He's bailing out or all that stuff. We see it all the time. But if the protection's good early, I think Mac Jones is early. He's pinpoint down the field. The lack of separation doesn't bother him because he has confidence in the line. He throws it up. He does back shoulders, all that stuff. And then the third part for me is the secondary's lights out. I think there are some big question marks in the secondary, from the, rookie Gonzalez to Jack Jones to what Jonathan Jones is going to look like coming back after missing a lot of last year. And plus, what they're going to do at free safety. But if those things get answered quickly and they're good, then, all those three things combined, the Patriots are in good shape, I think.
All right. So I think you've got to be a top 5 to 8 defense. I don't think this team has a good enough offense, even with a solid O-line, if things go well up front. I don't think this offense is explosive enough or good enough to win, right? Like to say, all right, well, our defense fell back to 10, 12, 15 in the league, and our offense needs to make that jump to be a top 10 to 12 offense. I think you've got to have a top 5 to 8 defense. If you're in that range, you feel pretty good. You need to be healthy just across the board. Like offensive line, Strange, Owenu, Andrews, they all have injury histories. Trent Brown has a little bit of a history as well. So, can they stay healthy up front on that offensive line? Can they stay healthy at wide receiver? Heard Mike Reese on, Zolak and Bertrand yesterday say that he didn't think Devontae Parker necessarily looked great when he came back to practice this week after missing a couple of practices last week. So are they healthy enough at wide receiver? Because once you start to tick down and have to rely on the Pop Douglases of the world and Kayshon Bouttys, now you're asking those rookies to do a hell of a lot more. Tight end, can you stay healthy at tight end? Hunter Henry has a little bit of a history. Gesicki already got banged up during camp. So you're going to have to stay healthy. You're also going to have a quarterback that levels up. You're going to have Mac Jones be even better than he was in his rookie season. He's got the coordinator now. I think he's got good weapons, not great. If that offensive line, again, off of my premise, if that offensive line is healthy and they're solid, then you need Mac to level up. And finally, I would just say less freaking mistakes and bad football, man. Less moments where I'm watching this team on Sunday going, what the hell was that? And how in the hell could that happen? Less flags. I want the operation to look clean. And I don't expect wide receivers to be running into each other this year and the spacing to be terrible. Turnovers. Don't turn the football over. Run the operation relatively clean. Don't have stupid penalties. Don't have 12 guys on the field multiple times this year. If you take care of those things, I think you got a shot. All right, before we get to three things that Patriots fans should be worried about when looking at this football team, Greg, let's first tell people what they should not be worried about when they're looking around to try to put some scuttle on some games this year. And that, of course, our friends at FanDuel.
Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. I love those little suckers. I use them all the time, especially now that football season's coming up. Just use them all the time. It's free money, and you can make money off it. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. By the way, I did this. I placed a few early season, what I guess you would call seasonal NFL bets. Yeah. And there it popped futures up right into my email. Yeah, some futures popped up right into my email. $100 off YouTube. And that's where you're going to get Sunday ticket this year. Not on your TV, or you're going to need it through YouTube. That's the only place to get it this year. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of NFL.
I'll tell you what about FanDuel. I'm back in Massachusetts. I couldn't do anything in California. I'm back here. I'm in Foxboro now, happy to be home. And one of the things I'm happiest about is the fact that I could actually partake in FanDuel. I had some future bets last week that I put down. So I'm happy about that. Check out FanDuel. All right, so we went over three things that you should be confident in if you're a Patriots fan, Greg, heading into the season. Now let's look at the wet blanket side of Bedard. Let's talk about three things that you would be worried about, starting with one of the three on your list.
Offensive line in general, and Adrian Clem. Just based off of the preseason and what I saw in practice, and look, it's not a good look at it. It's not detailed or anything like that, but just, little things. I didn't like some of the fundamentals. I didn't see a lot of improvement on the offensive line, in the preseason game when watching the coaches film. So, is Adrian Clem a stickler for the details like I hoped he would be? At this point, I would say no. But again, like I said, it's incomplete. But just the offensive line in general. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Trent Brown is, either has an attitude issue or gets hurt, which, then you're left with Calvin Anderson and whatnot at left tackle, maybe Tyrone Wheatley Jr., and, that the guards aren't ready to go for a while, or maybe Cole Strange just isn't healthy the whole year. Owenu, I guess I have a little bit more confidence in. And, right tackle is just, they never get it fixed. So you're worried about that. What's your number one worry on this team? I assume it might be the same thing.
Yeah, it's the 5,000-pound big fat ass elephant in the room. It's the offensive line. And Owenu coming off of surgery, David Andrews' concussion history, Cole Strange's injury, keeping him off the field the entire preseason. Trent Brown, if he's not dinged up, is he going to actually be engaged? Is he going to embrace the idea of walking into the final year of his contract? I don't think he got that, maybe a little bit of a bump or whatever that Judon got that we thought he might be trying to angle for. So will he be there all season long? And what happens at right tackle? I'll give you another thing here on the list. I'll give you a second thing on my list. And that's, I kind of mentioned this earlier, Greg, just the lack of explosiveness on offense, the lack of speed. That could be a concern because we've talked about it before. Most of these receivers, outside of pretty much Pop Douglas and sometimes Kendrick Bourne, but, Juju Smith-Schuster and Devontae Parker, and, can they get separation consistently? And do they have that extra gear athletically and speed-wise to be an explosive offense, which in 2023 is pretty damn critical in the NFL?
Yeah, that was exactly my number 2, Nick. I have written no separation or explosiveness among the targets. I mean, it could be, and you combine the line thing with that, you're talking, disaster. It's almost back to like last season, but you're right. I mean, all summer, outside of Pop Douglas and, Tyquan once in a while, and he's going to be out at least the first 4 weeks. I could see separation being a big issue for this team. And, is Mac going to throw it into those windows, or, is he going to hold the ball or take sacks? Like, it's just, you got to invest. You got to be better on offense. And so you need really good protection for your quarterback. I mean, look at the Eagles on the other side. Great offensive line, great weapons. And, not coincidentally, great offense, overall. So, yeah, that's a big worry of mine.
All right, give me a third one. Give me a third worry.
That the Patriots defense really isn't any better against top quarterbacks. That, Christian Gonzalez, while talented, he's still a rookie. He's not quite ready for prime time as a number 1 bona fide cornerback. That could be the case. That Jack Jones gets targeted by his uber aggressiveness. Mike Giardi talked to a personnel guy, and he's like, he basically said that, we would go after his ass. That, yeah, he's going to make a play on you, but he's going to give up 2 or 3 at the same time, which has pretty much been Jack Jones to this point in his career. And, and that free safety is kind of an issue that they don't get the pass rush going against the better offensive lines, and the quarterbacks are able to pick them apart in the secondary. I think that's been pretty much who they've been probably the last 3 or 4 or 5 years on defense. And if that continues, I think they're going to have a tough time.
I'll follow up on your concern and say the run defense. You're going to rely on a couple of guys in the middle of that defensive line, namely Devon Godchow. Is their run defense going to fall apart? Because if their run defense isn't good, now you get all sorts of problems, because that just opens up another can of worms. So maybe I'm shook too much by that Green Bay preseason game or whatever it was. Maybe I'm kind of got PTSD after watching that, but their run defense has to be good. I think they can get there. I think they, I don't know if I'd say probability, but at least the possibility that they figure things out. If Godchow is the guy that Belichick said he was, a year or 2 ago, and if Barmore shows up consistently, I'd feel better about it. But I think there's some question about that run defense to start this season. All right, before we get to the AFC East, before we get to a preview of the Eagles game, let's talk about X factors. I know, Greg, you got 3 guys on your list. I got 3 guys on my list. Let's start with your list.
So the 3 X factors for me, Christian Gonzalez, number 1. I think that if he's really good, if he's like borderline defensive rookie of the year good, that opens up a ton of possibilities for this defense. They can play more man coverage. That frees up people to blitz. It just makes things a lot easier. Marte Mapu is my second one. I'll be interested to see what they ask him to do in week 1. Based off the Packers preseason game, he's ready to cover people one-on-one. But as far as free safety and things like that, I think it's going to be a work in progress. But, I wouldn't be surprised if they say, go get Dallas Goedert in passing situations. And that would be a great thing for them. So if he's really good and can cover backs and tight ends better where they've had issues, it makes them much better. And then Devontae Parker, There are times when he does dominate. He has the potential to dominate. Not a burner, but really good in the air, physical. If he's that guy consistently for 17 games, which is a long shot given his history, but if he is, I think it makes the offense a lot more dangerous.
I like your three. I'll give you my three. Number one, I'm going to go with Pop Douglas. And part of this is, and I'm not telling you he's going to catch 90 footballs, but part of this is what Greg and I talked about earlier on this podcast, which was the idea of the lack of speed, the lack of, athleticism and just overall, no pun intended, pop to this offense. Well, Demario Douglas can hopefully bring some of that. He's going to be your gadget guy. I think he brings that quickness. He brings some separation off the line. He's fast. So if he could all of a sudden be, let's say he jumps to your, third receiver, whether it's jumping over Juju because he might have a knee issue pop up, or he jumps over Parker because Parker is in and out of the lineup and he's dealing with soft tissue injuries, or he jumps over Kendrick Bourne because Bourne doesn't necessarily actually prove to be the guy we hope he is this year. I think Pop Douglas can help out and be an X factor. Calvin Anderson, biggest question to me of this offensive line is obviously right tackle. If Calvin Anderson can prove himself to be worthy after this sickness, getting back on the field, and shout out to him because, again, I said this last week, sounded like he was really, really banged up and had a pretty serious issue. So great to see the guy actually being able to get back on the field, first of all. But if he can not only get on the field and be productive at that right tackle spot, now all of a sudden your offensive line falls in line, and Vidarian Lowe and those other guys, Mafi and Wheatley, now you have some pretty good young developmental talent behind a solidified O-line, which would be absolutely fantastic. So I think Anderson, right tackle, could be a big, big deal if he is that answer in that spot. And finally, just because I know Greg loves his special teams, just because I know people get all lathered up about special teams, Chad Ryland. Now, I will tip my cap to Nick Folk. Fantastic job the last couple of years. We know you don't have a lot of leg. That's fine, Nick. You did what you could do, my friend. But this team, I don't think, Greg, is going to be a team that's putting up 35 spots every week. You're going to have, I think, a number of close games. You're not going to run away from a lot of teams. And with that in mind, if we're talking about a team that has to consistently win within 3 points to 6 points, your kicker better be consistent. Your kicker better be the guy. And I know he can boom it, okay? I know he can boom it. He can kick it, 50-plus yards. Fantastic. But if he's kicking it 40 yards wide left from 55, I couldn't care less. Is he going to be consistent for this team? Is he going to be the guy? He doesn't have to be as great as Nick Folk, but is he going to, when he walks on that field, okay, let's just kind of picture this. Week 1, Eagles, close game, fourth quarter. You need a field goal to tie the game. Is Ryland that guy who you feel as a Patriots fan confidence in that he's going to walk on that field and take care of that kick? That's a big issue. With a team with, I think a very small margin for error, it's a big deal if your kicker's not good. So he better be consistent, and he better help this team win games like Nick Folk did. All right. Before we get to the AFC East and a quick look at this Eagles game coming up on Sunday, Greg, we, of course, have our friends at AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health.
AG1 is the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it literally every day. I gave AG1 a try because I was tired of buying and taking a million different pills and vitamins. I wanted something quick, convenient, and packed with all the good and essential stuff I needed to get through the day. I drink AG1 first thing in the morning before starting my day, and it makes me feel like I could take on the world. Tastes great, gives me a little boost, and then later on is the big payoff. Off AG1, I'm grinding to get through the day, looking at the clock. On AG1, I'm primed and sharp, especially mentally, for my very long days, especially during training camp. Covering my nutritional basis for the day literally couldn't be any easier, which is why I trust AG1. I just mix one small scoop with water and drink it first thing in the morning. Done. I also like that it costs less than $3 a day. Pretty good if you ask me. It's a really effective daily habit with high quality sourced ingredients. Win-win. If a comprehensive solution is what you need for your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/Bedard. That's drinkag1.com/Bedard. Check it out.
Let's jump to this division now, because people are talking about this division like it's going to be the greatest division in football history. A lot of talk about the Jets. I'm just, wondering if the Jets are going to go undefeated by some of the stuff I hear about this team. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about this AFC East, Greg. How do you see it stacking up here? We get to week 16, 17, 18. How do you think this thing lines up?
I know I'm totally going to regret this, but I'm going with the Jets. I'm going with the Jets. I just think they're just too good. I mean, especially the Dalvin Cook addition, gives them the potential to be really balanced. I think their cornerback, but we talk about the Patriots have the potential to be maybe good at cornerback. I mean, when you're talking about, you already have Sauce Gardner, who's just incredible, and DJ Reed already. It's just, I just think their defense is their linebackers are great. I just think the Jets they're the best team to me on paper. I think Rodgers is going to be reinvigorated. Change of scenery is good. I think he's going to be really good. Of course, watch the left tackle and probably Mekhi Becton and Rodgers all get hurt in week 1 and they're never heard from again. But I'm going with the Jets. I think they're the best. I think the Bills are going to take a step back. I think they had their shot. I think there's just some uneasiness about the Bills. When I have questions, I think they're getting old on defense. I don't think they're great at cornerback. And their safeties are getting older. They have to replace their linebackers other than Milano. And I've never been a huge guy about him. But I think it's Josh Allen is still he's uber talented. And you can pretty much pencil them in for 10 wins, every season that he's healthy. Sort of like latter-day Tom Brady. And then I have the Dolphins and Patriots tied for third/last in the AFC East. I like a lot of what the Dolphins are doing. I love the Vic Fangio addition on defense, and the defense was their Achilles heel. But I just can't. I'm not sold on Tua staying healthy. I got to see it to believe in them. I can't go wishing on it. And yeah, they got Moore as the backup, and that's better than what they had last year. But I just can't see it. And I just, Belichick freed up to do his thing this year instead of worrying about the offense and that, therefore the defense and special teams slacking off. I think that helps the Patriots, more. I still think they're similar. Both teams are similar around 9-8, 8-9, 7-10, that area. But tough schedule for the whole division. I mean, it's going to be, not only are they going to beat each other up, but they got a lot of tough games just on the schedule with the intra-division stuff. So that's the way I see the AFC East.
I do think the Bills won't be as good as they've been the past couple of years, but I still think they're the best team in the division. And when we talk about this, when we say on paper, I know some people say on paper. Well, hey, what the hell? That's all we got right now is the damn paper. Yeah. Until they start actually playing football, Greg and I have the paper. So what's on paper? What's on paper? You're talking talent. It was interesting today. A report, Sean McDermott saying that Micah Hyde's dealing with a back injury that recently popped up. So keep an eye on that. Greg mentioned, Micah Hyde and Poyer on the back end of that defense. So, is that going to be an issue? I do have the Jets second, and it's not because I'm sitting here going crazy and doing jumping jacks like everybody is about Aaron Rodgers and this team. But I do think they have talent on paper, and I do think they're better than the Patriots and the Dolphins. Could that crumble? Yes. The one thing I think all of us have to keep an eye on is we get wrapped up in the bubble of New England because that's what we pay attention to the most. We care about the Patriots the most. It's our job to break it down. We get paid to do that, Greg and I, fortunately. So that's what we do here. And everybody's talking about the Patriots schedule. Look at the Jets schedule. Look at what they got to start off with, okay? They got to play Buffalo on Monday night. Then they go to Dallas. Then they got New England. Then they got the Chiefs. Then they got to go to Denver. Then they come back and play Philadelphia. So Buffalo, Dallas, Kansas City, the Eagles. Those are 4 of your top contenders in the NFL this year. Jets got to play those 4 teams in the first 6 weeks. Their easiest game on the schedule is probably, depending on how you feel about Denver, you'd probably say the Patriots, because the Jets are home in week 3 against the Pats. But that schedule is really tough. And it'll be fascinating, Greg, because of all the pomp and circumstance surrounding this team with the Hard Knock stuff and Rodgers telling me about UFO sightings and all that good stuff. And Robert Saleh just absolutely in love with his quarterback. All this talk about it reminds me, the talk, not how this team was built, but the talk reminds me of the Eagles' dream team from back in like 2010 or whatever it was. A lot of talk about how talented this team is. Well, if they start off 2-4, it's going to be very interesting to see how Captain Rodgers handles that and how that affects the rest of the team. Because right now, everybody's throwing their flowers at Rodgers. Right now, it's the honeymoon phase. They get off to a 2-4 start, and that offensive line's a little bit shaky. And Rodgers looking around a little bit, getting pissed. Then we'll see what they do. If they start off, I'll look at it the other side, fairly. If they start off 4-2 or 5-1, they're off to the races. So it'll be fascinating to see the first 6 weeks of the season, how they handle that. I got Bills, Jets, Patriots, Dolphins. I am scared of Tua's health if I'm Miami. I know he took jiu-jitsu courses in the offseason and all that shit, but is that guy going to be able to stay healthy? We'll see. All right. Greg is not going to give you his season prediction on this podcast because A, Greg doesn't like me. And so he's running away from giving you the best content on this podcast. B, he wants you to take a look at BSJ. So on Sunday, Greg is going to have his prediction of the game. Okay, so that's going to happen. Prediction of the game will be on the website.
Prediction of the season. So my season column, my season prediction.
So I was right the first time. The prediction of the season. I'll figure it out. Post-COVID excuse. I had it for 2 weeks. So it's going to be the season prediction. So I was right. Season prediction. So Greg's not going to give that to you right now because, again, he hates me, and B, he wants to go to BSJ. But here's the thing. I will give you my prediction. I'm giving you 8 wins. Now, I'm kind of fluctuating between 8 and 9. I'm like waffling. I'll tell you why I sit at 8. Because in my mind, Greg, if this team is fully healthy and things click, again, they're healthy, the operation is run well, I think they could win 10 games. So it was a little strange to me to say, well, 9 wins, but if everything goes really well, they could win 10 games. It's like, okay, 1 game difference between those two. So I feel, I'll lean towards 8 wins on the season. I think if things are not great from a health standpoint, you could see this team end up at 7 wins. But I feel like 8's a fair number. The ceiling to me is 10. The floor to me is I can't imagine they'd win less than 6 games. So that's kind of where I am. And I've mentioned this before. I was on EEI a few years ago, and it was the first year post Brady, and people were losing their minds. And I try to explain back then, like, this is just the NFL, folks. And Greg's covered it for a long time. He's older than me. And if you look at the league, you got usually when you walk into a season, you usually have 5 or 6 teams that you say those guys could win the Super Bowl. Those guys are legit contenders. And then you've got 5 teams that you usually look at and say they suck. And I don't mean like the Felger, they suck, blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about 7, 8 wins suck. I mean suck. Like really suck. 4 wins suck. 3 wins suck. Those teams have a great opportunity at a top 5 pick. So you got the top 5 contenders, you got the top, 5 picks, that rat race at the bottom, and then you really got 20 to 22 football teams in the middle. And there's not a big difference. I'm telling you, I've watched a lot of football over the last decade all across the league because of what I've done for a living, thankfully. I've watched a lot of teams. I've watched a lot of football. There's not a huge difference between teams that win 7 games in 9 or 10 games. There's really not. The Patriots could have won 10, 11 games last year. They could have won 6 or 7 games last year. That big, fat middle of the league is where this team is. And that's not where you want to be because you feel like you're stuck in purgatory. But that's kind of where they are. They could go down to 7 wins. They could have as many as 10 wins and slide into the playoffs. But that's just the reality of the NFL. All right. Week 1 preview. Let's talk about our pick. Greg is going to give you this pick because he now likes me. And he's going to give you the pick. And then we're also, while we give you the pick, we're going to obviously talk about the game a little bit of a scouting report, the Eagles. Before we get into the pick itself, I will tell you that it's Philly, according to our friends at FanDuel. Again, check them out. Philly -3.5. The over-under is 45. Greg, first, looking at this game, Eagles, let's kind of look at, from the Patriots standpoint, I think the one thing that I love about this game is that this is really the ultimate test for this defense right out of the gates. Mm-hmm. They are going to be tested, right? You've got a top quarterback who happens to be mobile, which has been a big issue, which was one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and you and I have talked about ever since the beginning of this podcast 3 years ago. They've had trouble with mobility at that position. You've got a mobile quarterback, a really good quarterback. Read Mike Giardi at BSJ. Mike thinks he might be the greatest quarterback of all time. I kid and jest, Mike, relax. But they could run the football, partially because of Hurts. They were number 5 in the NFL last year in rushing yards. They've got A.J. Brown. They've got DeMonte Smith. And Devontae's no joke. And they've got, I think, if not the best offensive line in the game, one of the best offensive lines in the game. Greg, if we want to know how good this defense is from day one, we're going to find out on Sunday.
Yeah. To me, Nick, the Patriots have no excuse not to announce their presence with authority as a defense. I mean, if they truly are a burgeoning elite defense, or they were even good last year and they're even better this year, and we talk about the pieces, they got Gonzalez and they got Keon White and they got Marte Mapu and they got, this and that. And you've had all summer to get ready for this Eagles offense. Like if they were playing them in week 10 and got steamrolled, I'd be like, all right, this team's a tough team to get prepared for. With all they do with, the +1 run game, which means, the quarterback's involved because you got to count for him as a ball carrier, whereas a guy like Mac Jones, you don't have to count for him. It's a pain in the rear end. The Patriots have had months to get ready for this. They have worked on it even in the preseason game. If you watch the Packers preseason game, the way they didn't rush the quarterback, that was to get ready for Philly. They have Malik Cunningham here to be the scout team quarterback, to get them at least a look at a mobile quarterback and how they do things. And so to me, if the Patriots defense is not really good in this game, and really good against this offense, to me is, mid-20s. If they can hold them, 24 points or below, to me, that's a good outing. Anything below 20 is awesome. Like, go nuts, call them the 85 Bears if you want. But if they get steamrolled, if the Eagles come out and score, if they're like the Bengals last year, when the Bengals scored on like their first 3 or 4 possessions, like I don't want to hear anything about this defense the whole rest of the season, because they haven't proved anything. So, that's the backdrop. The Eagles, they are awesome. I mean, they are. They have probably the best offensive line, probably the best defensive line in football. If you're a believer in that, including me, and I do, then you think that the Eagles will win this game, pretty easily. They do have a new defense coordinator, Sean Desai. I watched his press conference today. I know people who know him, who think he's the real deal, who think he's smart as hell. He definitely looks green to me. So we'll see, how he does with the bullets are flying. A lot of people in Philly think this is akin to, remember when Matt Patricia left after the Eagles Super Bowl when they lost and he left to go to Detroit. And then the Patriots got Brian Flores and everybody, felt better about that. And that turned out to be true. People with the Eagles think the same thing. They think that Jonathan Gannon, who got the Cardinals job after giving up a ton of points in the Super Bowl, going to Desai is similar to the Patriots going to Brian Flores. So something to keep an eye on. New linebackers, Nakobe Dean, first-time starter at middle linebacker. I look for the Patriots to take advantage of him. Reed Blankenship at safety. They have 2 new safeties. So, right in the middle of the field, that's where I think the Patriots will look to make a living. They'll do a lot of, sort of counteraction, traps, bubble screens, quick stuff, just to survive this game and sort of make the Eagles tackle because they haven't done a whole lot this summer. And then, defensively, they're just going to have to match them physically, and they're going to have to hold up in the back end against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and all that stuff. I think the Patriots will play a lot of zone this season, especially early, split safety stuff. Just try to limit the big plays and tackle, take care of Hurts. But at the end of the day, I just don't think the Patriots are ready for this game. I don't think they're ready up front. Just looking at the reporters who are at practice right now on Wednesday, Devontae Parker, extremely limited. Looks like Cole Strange is limited. Looks like Owenu is limited in practice. Not really good signs going into this game. I think the Eagles, thanks to, if you can believe this, Nick, thanks to Matt Patricia being able to tell Nick Sirianni.
Matty P.
It's not the intel on Mac Jones or anything. Like, who gives a crap? But Matt Patricia is the type of guy, and a lot of these former Patriots assistants, they do well. Their offenses do well against Belichick because they can go to the coach and say, or Josh McDaniels, they'll be like, I know exactly what Bill's going to try to do. And I'm sure Sirianni went to Matt Patricia and be like, Matt, what's Bill going to try to do? What's he going to try to take away from us? And I think they've been working on that. I think they're going to have counters. I think the Eagles are going to get off to a fast start. I think the Patriots will make a game of it. But at the end of the day, I just think the Eagles have too much, and I don't have an exact score yet, but I think the Eagles easily cover the 3.5 point spread.
All right, so a little pushback on the defense. I would not burn them to the ground if they're not ultra successful this weekend because I think they're still trying to figure out the free safety situation. I do think Christian Gonzalez is going to improve throughout the year, so I don't think the defensive force that you see or don't see on Sunday is going to be indicative for the rest of the season. But I do think if you look at it and Hurts kills him with his legs and all that stuff, it's absolutely reason for concern. But I would not freak out just yet and say, oh, they're just not going to be a good defense. They're gonna have to have some time here to figure some things out. So we'll see how that all works. Ultimate test for the Patriots offensive line. That scares the crap out of me this weekend. I know a lot of people have told you that, the Eagles led the league in sacks last year with 70. I don't know how many of those people told you that they led that statistic by 15. They had 15 more sacks than the team that was second, which were the Chiefs, with 55. So they not only had the most sacks in the league, they were in a different stratosphere last year when it comes to getting to the quarterback. And yes, Hargrave ended up going to San Francisco, but Jalen Carter is the new man in town, was seen as the best defensive tackle prospect. He is a giant human being with freak athleticism. He is absolutely no freaking joke. They were only number 1 in sacks. They were number 2 in pressures, and they were number 2 in pressure rate. So even if they don't get your quarterback down to the ground for a sack, they are breathing down his neck consistently. That is a huge concern for the Patriots on Sunday, especially given what, Greg just told you. Owenu looks limited. Strange looks limited. Calvin Anderson is coming back from sickness. Who's going to be the starting right tackle on Sunday? We'll have to wait and see. I mean, it might literally be Belichick drawing a name out of a hat by Friday of this week to figure out who's going to be his right tackle. Offensive line, got to see what happens with those guys. Bill O'Brien, how is he going to approach this? I think we've talked about it, a lot of quick passing game, a lot of short stuff to try to open things up a little bit. How does Mac deal with the pressure if he's getting heat early on from that defensive line? Devontae Parker, after what I heard from Mike Reese yesterday and what Greg just said about the reports at Gillette today, I'm not feeling overly confident in Devontae Parker being able to make a difference on Sunday. Hopefully he shows up on Sunday and he looks like he's completely healthy and jumped out of bed in the morning. We'll see. And I wonder about Zeke and Mondre. Again, I feel really good about those guys. Philadelphia's run defense was not the best last year. If there's one thing that you look defensively, aside from the new starting safeties that Greg mentioned, you look at that run defense and you whether if they're vulnerable there and whether or not you'll see an early dose of Stevenson and Zeke Elliott in the first quarter of this game to try to bring that physicality and downhill running at the Eagles and test the young rookie in the middle. We'll see that. And defensive questions, free safety, what's it look like? Who's playing back there? Does anybody screw up an assignment? How's the communication? Does somebody take a bad angle on a tackle and allow a huge play to develop instead of, stopping a 15-yard gain? Christian Gonzalez, a big challenge this week. What's going to happen with Jack Jones and John Jones? Is Jack starting on the outside? We'll see. Can Christian Barmore show up and show out like we hope that he would? The rookies, Keon White, how much does he play? Does he make a difference early against this really good offensive line of Philadelphia? And Marte Mapu, what the hell is he? What is he going to do? Where is he going to play? Multiple spots. Is he going to make an impact? Lots of questions. I'll take the Eagles minus the 3.5. I'll go over the 45. They're just a better football team. I'm not necessarily telling you they're going to run away with it. It's going to be a smoke show. Could be. Things go badly. But I like the Eagles minus 3.5 in this spot. All right, couple things. You want to check Greg out over at BSJ, $50 for the year. If you haven't heard, Greg Bedard brought in a new tag team partner. And me being a wrestling fan, if you could see the championship belt behind me that has my name and nickname on it, it's right there between the
what's your
the
nickname?
beer cans. Well, when I was younger, it used to be Hollywood because I was the Jack Jones of All-Star and AAU baseball when I was younger.
I could definitely see that. There's no explanation needed.
Had a little swag to me. But so I'm a wrestling fan. If you haven't heard, Bedard has brought in Mike Giardi, who I don't think likes me, but that's fine. He is really good at what he does. And you've got Bedard and Giardi, tag team champions of the world on Patriots coverage happening at BSJ. Check them out. And also, if you don't hate me, I'm starting a new show on Monday. It's the Nick Cattle Show on YouTube. Yes, a podcast will be available. It's going to be every day at 3 o'clock. We're going to release it Monday through Friday. I'll do breaking news stuff as well. And that's happening. So check it out. I'll have a link up at Twitter soon enough. I'm tweaking some things. So once those things are tweaked, hopefully by tomorrow, I will have a link, a YouTube link for everybody. But look, I'm not going to sit here and sell you on it. If you want to listen to it, 30 minutes a day, hopefully you like it. But I do hope that everybody listening to this gives me at least a shot. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Nick C Radio. And my goal really is just to force Greg Bedard to hire me full-time at BSJ. But I do know that Mike Giardi makes a lot of money, so that might not happen. Hopefully all of you enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully we have something to at least enjoy on Sunday, even if it's not a win, a good competitive football game. I do think will tell us a lot about this Patriots team. This episode of the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles, brought to you by FanDuel. Our friends, don't forget about them, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Sign up now at FanDuel.com/Boston. New customers can now receive $200 and free bonus bets with a $5 bet. And plus, all customers bet $5, you'll receive $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket via YouTube and YouTube TV. The NFL Sunday Ticket offer ends on September 18th. So you got 12 more days to take advantage of that. I've got YouTube Sunday Ticket ready to go. My plan is to have 6 games up in the 1 o'clock window on Sunday because I'm a maniac. So that will be good. But that's all I got to say. And Greg, he's ready. Again, BSJ, we will, of course, be back early next week to recap this game. Hopefully, again, it was a good competitive game. Till then, be good, be safe, be healthy, and let's see what this team does in 2023.